and grew up in Boston, where I live now, and my rank getting out of the service was a lieutenant, Navy lieutenant. My boat number, the boat the entire time, was PCF 76. And I operated primarily up north in I-Corps, which was the northern part of South Vietnam. And at that point in time, it was controlled by the Marines. So we actually reported operationally to the United States Marine Corps rather than the Navy, to whom we reported from an administrative standpoint. Okay. So anyway, we had three bases, one down at Chu Lai, then we had another base in Da Nang, and then we had a small base for a short period of time called Viet, which was a river up near the DMZ. So between North and South Vietnam, you had something called the demilitarized zone, not unlike what you had in Korea. On the north side, a river divided it called the Ben Hai River, and on the south side of the DMZ was a river called the Viet. And the Marine Corps had a base at the mouth of the Viet River. So we had 3 or 4 swift boats there right inside the river mouth, and probably, we might have had maybe six or seven crews, and we lived in a compound that was run by the Marines, who, by the way, don't know how to eat very well. But that was okay. They were good fellows, and they provided security. We operated a lot with the Marines. So what we did, we had something called a weather probe. And when there was rough weather, you would send out one of the boats early in the morning, 6 or 7 o'clock, to put its nose out to determine whether we could get out and you could patrol for that day. And if you could, you sent a radio message back, and the rest of the boats that were on patrol that day would go out. But if the radio message was you can't patrol, then everybody would stay in port. And this is November 6th, I won't forget it, 1967. And this is kind of the winter storm season. So we were on the tail end of a winter storm. So I had the first patrol, so my job was to go out and do a weather probe. So what you do is you prepare the boat as if you're going to be out for the 36 hours, okay? So you get the crew, and we were right by the river mouth. But the river mouth was tricky because there were sandbars, and they were always shifting. When you're shifting and overlapping sandbars, you get all of this surf. So you might have a surf line that's a couple of 100 feet long, and then you've got open water, and then you've got another surf line. And with storms, these sandbars are constantly shifting. So as the sandbars shift, so do the surf lines. So you couldn't get a straight shot coming out the river. Unfortunately, you had to kind of come around, go to the south, and then head, and you looked out, and there are multiple surf lines. So you get a row of white water here, etc. And you kind of have to pick your way through it. And occasionally they'd have a buoy there, but with the changing sandbars, sometimes you couldn't even bet on the buoys. So anyway, you came around a corner, and then you took a left-hand turn, and you headed out into the surf line. And the surf at that point in time was probably anywhere from, I'm going to say, 8 to 12 feet high. And we're not talking a wave, we're talking kind of boiling, foaming white water. And then the other thing you have to worry about with any wave, but with surf, it's what's called a period. And that's the period between waves from trough to trough. And why that time frame is important is because you go up and you go down, and the period allows the boat to recover for the next wave. So if the period's too short, the boat goes down, you don't recover for the next wave. Okay, so that's what you had to worry about. And when you're out in a huge hurricane and they're 30 feet high, the same thing applies. How long is the period? So this is, in a normal thing, you might have a 7, 8, 9 second period. This was much shorter. This might have been, I wasn't out there with a stopwatch, but let's say maybe 4 to 5 seconds, very short period. Okay. So you put the bow into the first wave, and it's just foaming water, and it just boom, comes right over the pilot. And the weight of the water is not pounds, it's tons. So the foaming white water goes on the bow, and it drives the bow down. So now the boat is on a downward slope. So what you hope then is that you will have enough time for the boat to come back up so the bow is up and hits the next wave with the bow up. And that's why you worry about the period, because if the period's too short, the bow is down, and the next wave doesn't hit the bow doesn't ride, it hits the pilot house. So after 1 or 2 of these waves, I realized that the boat was not rising. Okay, for 2 reasons. One, the surf was very intense. The period between the waves was too short. And then if you look at the design of the Swift boat, which the Navy didn't design, they bought it off the shelf, you have a very short bow. So the distance from the pilot house, which is a vertical, to the pointed bow was just 6 feet, all right? So visualize all that water and all that weight and force has to be dissipated in 6 feet. Well, the reason it can't be. So it comes back against the pilot house. So if you look at some of these fishing boats that are out in the North Atlantic, there's plenty of bow so the shoulders can lift the boat up. Than in the case of the Swift boat. So the bow gets down, the next wave hits the pilot house, and eventually it's going to knock in the windows or take the pilot house off. Because what you're doing, and the boat had a lot of power, but when you're heading down, the power doesn't do you any good. All you're going to be is a submarine. So we went through 2 of these, and I just said, we're not going to make it. I can't power through these waves. It's as simple as that. Waves too intense, period too short, wrong design of the boat. If you look at some of these Coast Guard surf boats, they're designed entirely different. They'll just power the wave up the thing. We didn't have that. So I'm at the wheel in the pilot house, and I yelled to the crew, hold on, I'm going to try to spin it about. Okay. And an experienced crew had been in country now probably 7 or 8 months. Salty crew, even though young as was I. And so, hold on, I'm going to try to spin it around. So what you do is you wait for a period between the waves, and in this particular case, I took the starboard engine and pushed it ahead hard. I took the port engine and pulled it back into reverse to spin the boat, and then I took the wheel and turned it hard to the left to accelerate as fast as I could the turn, because you had a limited amount of time. So I said, hold on, went right into it, and standing in the pilot house with me was my boatmate. The other 4 crew members were back in the short main cabin. So it wasn't something you really could prepare for. It was kind of a decision, bang, 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 bang. So we turned, we got halfway around, so now visualize that we are in the trough between the 2 waves of the surf, okay, and the boat is along the trough, okay? It's not really where you want to be. You want to be totally turned around. So visualize this, we go up, we go down, and then we turn like this. So we're in the trough, and what happens here is the next wave comes and it catches us on the stern quarter. So it's got so much force, it lifts you right up, it doesn't hesitate, and it rolls you right over. So now we are all upside down in the boat. And as it went over out of the corner of my eye, I just looked and I saw a gray wall of white water, because some of the first set of windows had been bashed in by the surf, I mean, just like that. So what I did is, as it was over, I made a bolt for the side window. And if you look at the side window, there's a lot of me and not much side window, okay? And it's not the type of thing where you have a time frame, well, gee, I'll go over here and I'll open the door and I'll get out that way, okay? You got to move fast, because the water was already, the boat was upside down and the water was already pouring in, because the windows really weren't watertight, the side windows especially. So I get out and I'm partway through the window, and it wasn't a 46 extra long, so I am stuck in the window, okay? And so, instantaneously you just do what you have to do, and I get out, all right? This is, we're talking seconds here, not a lot of contemplative time. So now I'm outside the boat and I look up and there's a shadow, and I'm below the boat, and the boat is now coming down again, okay? Only it's coming down on top of me. So I dive down, get off to the side. Fortunately, the boat, I don't think, hit me. So I come up now, and I'm very short of breath because of it in the cabin. I get stuck in the window, I get dove down, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know anything else that's going on. So I come to the surface, and I am on the surf line. So I'm outside the boat, out towards the sea where the surf is. So I'm stuck in a surf line, and now the boat is probably inshore from me. I'm going to say maybe 50 to 75 yards. And the surf is so much, and I'm a decent swimmer, I'm tossed around like a cork. So you come to the surface, the next breaker hits you, tosses you around like this. Just you get driven down, maybe 5 or 6 feet, you come back up, and again, because the period's so short, the next one is waiting for you. So you come up and you're really starting to lose your breath. So I knew enough to get my sneakers off, but I was too tired, I couldn't get my pants and shirt off. So it was a very, very, not to be ultra, it was a very, very bad scene. And I just came to the conclusion that this wasn't going to last much longer. And the boat is unfortunately being carried by the surf, and I am not. So it's 75, it's getting longer. So, and in the meantime, I'm getting tossed down. Every time I toss down, you get more tired. So I made one last sprint, which is really all I had, and I just said, God, give me the strength, and I made it to the back of to the stern of the boat, and you just keep driving, and I just reached up, my hand went into the boat. The boat is now upside down, so I could reach up and grab the engine exhaust on the stern. Okay, so just big hole, you stick your hand in there, and the boat all this time is still in the surf line, but it's getting tossed around. At least I've got something to hold onto. At this point in time, I don't know how many minutes had passed, maybe 5, could have been 3, don't know. So I'm holding on. I have no idea where anyone else is at this point in time. And the boat is rocking around, and I'm in the water. It's a big gray boat when it's upside down. So I grab onto the exhaust, and above the exhaust is plates called zincs. And they just take care of the fact that it's an aluminum boat in salt water. Okay, but that's not terribly relevant from an engineering standpoint. It might be. Grabbed onto them, crawled up, and you're in reverse because it's upside down. Crawled up and then got onto the stern and grabbed onto the screws. And the engines had stopped when it turned over, so they weren't running. Okay, but the propellers are sharp, so you got to get by the propellers because you get tossed around and you try to grab on to the rudders or the shafts for the propellers. So I get up there, and now I'm okay. All right. And I look towards shore, and I see the boat had a small cork life raft, which you couldn't get in, but you could hold onto. And it flipped off as it was made to do when the boat went over. So 4 crew members were holding on to the cork life raft. And they had grabbed life jackets, didn't have them on when the boat went over because they wouldn't have gotten out the door. They had gone, as the boat went over, we had life jackets on a bunk back aft. So they grabbed the life jackets. So a couple of them had life jackets, and they were holding on to the cork life raft. Okay. So the best thing I could do for them is just try to communicate with them and make sure they were all right. So, and meantime, the wind is blowing. Okay, what's called spume, whatever it is, off the top of the waves. It's all foaming and white and foggy and everything else. So I'm yelling to them, and I want to know your name, talk to me, anything I could think of to just keep them conscious. And that kind of worked. All right. And then after a couple of minutes, I could see that another swift boat, a fellow by the name of Tom Jones in the 80 boat, had come out, and he hadn't gone through the surf line. He was kind of on the edge of the river mouth, and it looked like he might be able to get to them without doing the same thing I did. Okay, I did. So they looked all right for the moment, and I was holding on. At this point in time, myself, 4 people on the raft, and I'm missing one person. Okay? And that's my leading bosun mate, a guy by the name of Bill Fielder, who I was very close to. And I figured that I had lost him because we're now probably 5 or 10 minutes into this ordeal, and I couldn't see him. So, then what hits you there is you have a whole set of emotional hurdles. I mean, the first one being when the boat goes over, the second when you can't get back to the boat, then you've got a high when you do get back to the boat, and then you worry about your crew, and then it occurs to you you're missing somebody, and that's a low. So that was kind of a very depressing set of circumstances, but then all of a sudden I look down the stern and he pops up. He has been in the main cabin in an air pocket for, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes. He's there with a t-shirt and a pair of undershorts. And so I reach down and I grab him and I bring him up. And he's in pretty good shape. And it's amazing because in the main cabin, upside down, we had lockers in the deck where we stored boxes of 50 caliber machine guns. So those would have opened, and as soon as you went upside down, they weren't latched because it didn't work that way. So I'm just, thank God he didn't get hit by one of those things. They probably weighed 50, 75 pounds. Now, fortunately, it wasn't a sunny day, but there was light out. It was 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So there was light because we were still on the surface, and some light came through the windows of the boat, even though it was upside down. So he was able to go to the cabin, go over to the side of the cabin where we had sliding windows, and either he kicked one out or he was able to slide it and get out. So he got out. So we got him up on the boat, And so he, like myself, he's holding on to the rudders and hanging on to the screws, and we're still yelling to the crew. So for that time being, we're in pretty good shape, okay? Then it occurs to me that this boat is not drifting in towards shore, okay? It is stuck in the surf line, and it's being carried to another surf line, and all these surf lines kind of overlap. So we are not gonna drift out of this situation. And the boat is really being tossed around, and you figure it is 1/4-inch aluminum, it's not steel, and eventually this thing is just gonna get beaten up, okay? And you know, you get these shudders, and you wonder what happens to the boat when it's shuddering. So I look overhead, and overhead is a spotter plane from either the Army or the Marine. He's circling so that someone knows where we are, okay? And I knew that because the other swift boat had come up. And then there's another Huey helicopter, and he's circling. So we got a plane, we got a helicopter, but I know that none of them have lift capability, and a swift boat or anything else is not going to come out to us. All right, so we got a major problem that everybody knows we're here, but there's no way to get us off. And then, so a Marine helicopter comes out called an H-34 model, and he did have lift capability. So he has a winch out the side of the door of the helicopter. He lowers down what you call a horse collar, which is basically like an orange loop. And so I said to my bosun mate, you know, get in that. So I put him in that, and what it is, it goes around your back, under your shoulders, and there's a cable right here. So even if you're unconscious, you're unlikely to fall up. So you don't have to strap anybody in. Okay, you just put it over the thing and it pull you up like this, and it automatically pushes your neck back. And as long as you keep your arms down by your side, you won't fall out. It doesn't sound very scientific, but it does in fact work. Fortunately, on another ship, I had ridden one of those, so it wasn't of concern. So they hauled my bosun mate up, and he was fine. And then they lowered it down for me. And all this time, you know, the helicopter can't lower it because he's getting a lot of turbulence from the surf. He doesn't hit you right over the head with it. So you got to crawl up the boat a little bit to get in the horse collar. Well, you don't want to crawl up the boat and flip off the boat and fall in the water. So you got to worry a little bit about that. So he's up there, he comes down, and I get back up in it. I put the horse collar on, and boom, they pull me out, and the swift boat's down there, and it's sitting in the surf. And for some reason, there was some delay in the winch. So I'm about 100 feet below the helicopter, and we're flying up the Viet River towards Dung Ha. The DMZ's over there. You know, you really shouldn't be hanging from a helicopter, but the bottom line was a huge improvement over my previous condition. So so we were saved at that point in time, and I was beat up a little bit, as with my bosun mate, but I wanted to thank the pilot. So the pilot in that H-34 helicopter, he sits up in the front with a co-pilot on a little bit of a pedestal. So I'm back in the main part of the helicopter. So I crawl up, and I want to thank him. So the picture here is your typical Marine helicopter pilot. He's got the helmet on, he's got the radio, he's got the sunglasses, and he's got a water gun and a cigar. And so all I can do is, it's noisy, I can't talk to him. I pat him on the leg. He just kind of looks over, looks down on me as if I do this every day, gives me a big thumbs up. And he took us up to Dung Ha, and he had to leave, so I never got his name, just got off. My bosun mate and I saluted him, thanked him for saving our lives, and then we went down. I had to get right back down to the base, because I wasn't totally sure of the status of the crew. So I got down, and they were a little beat up, physically, a little beat up mentally, but they were okay. They were in a kind of a medical center. So bottom line is, thank God, despite the fact we lost the boat, we saved everybody. And I went out later on with some frogmen, and the frogmen were going to attempt to put a line on the boat, because you could still see it in the surf. So I didn't go out to the boat. I kind of stood on the edge of the thing and held the line where the frogmen went out. So he went out, he said, no way. He said, the pilot house has already broken off, and it's hung off, and he said, it's like an open can. And he said, there's no way I'm going to try to attach a cable onto that boat. The cabin come down and cut me in half. That was the end of the boat, and all that came ashore was the silverware drawer and the life ring, and I still have the life ring sitting on my house down the Cape Cod. So that was November 6, 1967. Last patrol for PCF 76. But thank God we were all safe. But it was they were a well-trained, well-disciplined crew, and that really made the difference. And we had all worked together we went through school together, so we've been together for almost a year. That was a huge difference. So that's my story.